Shabbat Shalom. We're reading this week Parashat Noach, and towards the end of the Parashat, near the end, the earth is being repopulated, and several generations after Noach has emerged from the ark, the people together have decided to move west, and they found a clear, flat piece of land, and began to build a city and a tower in the city. And this action did not find favor in the eyes of the Lord, as the saying goes. Apparently, this was seen to be an act of rebellion. The Midrash says they were going to try and climb up to heaven and fight God. And God said about the confuting this plan by introducing languages. Almost miraculously, all of a sudden, the people who were working together to build the city and the tower began speaking different languages. They couldn't communicate, they couldn't work together, and they had to give up the plan to build the city, and they dispersed, and this is how the Bible tells us that the world became full of populations speaking different languages. Now, a number of people have pointed to various thematic similarities between the story of the Tower of Babel, as it's called in English. Actually, the traditional Jewish name is Dor Pelaga, the generation of division, the generation in which the world's population split up into different language groups. But again, the thematic similarities between this story and the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And I would like to offer my own observations and my own twist on the similarities between them and the implications of these two stories. So I would like to point out 4 areas of comparison between the two stories, and with the help of some charts, which I'll put on the screen soon, and then discuss as I said, the implications. The similarities are the points to be compared to: 1, the idea of a beginning, a new beginning; 2, a transgression, a sin, a misdemeanor, something done wrong by the people in this situation; 3, the punishment that's meted out by God as on account of this transgression; and 4, the redemption from this situation. 1, 2, and 3 are pretty clear in the Torah. 4, the redemption, is actually not explicit in the Torah, maybe not even completely implicit in the Torah, but it is found in the Jewish sources, in one case even in the Tanakh itself. So we will begin now with the first 2 elements. And you see on the screen here that we have in the Garden of Eden, it's the creation of the world. It's the Adam and Eve are the first humans. So it's a completely new situation. With regard to the Tower of Babel, or the Dor Pelaga, it's a renewed situation. There has already been 10 generations of people, but because of their disgusting and sinful behavior, they were wiped out. The earth was sort of washed clean of them in the flood. And so now we have a renewed civilization, a renewed population of the earth. Then, moving to the transgression, in the first case of Adam and Eve, it's eating from the fruit of the tree, something which was explicitly forbidden by God. With regard to the Tower of Babel, again, it's not said clearly in the Torah that they violated a specific commandment, but it's clear, I think, from the narrative, and certainly fleshed out and made very clear in the Midrashim, that they were building this city and this tower as an act of rebellion against the Lord. Now, moving on to the punishment, well, it's clear in the case of Adam and Eve, they were banished from the Garden of Eden. And with regard to the Dor Palaga, the generation of the dispersion, of dispersal, of division, they were banished from the city. They had abandoned their plans to build the city, and they spread out over the world, speaking different languages which were not mutually intelligible. Now, then, finally, the fourth part is the redemption. And this is a bit more involved because, as I said, it's not at all in the Torah clearly, or even maybe even implicitly. But I think it is in the sources. With regard to the banishment from the Garden of Eden, you recall that the Torah ends the story by saying that after Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, God placed east of Eden the Keruvim, these angels with the Lad Acherva Mitapechet, this flame of the sword that moves back and forth, Lishmor at Eitz HaChaim, to guard the path to the tree of life. So it's not as if it's impossible to get back into the garden, to get on the road to the tree of life and get back into the Garden of Eden. It's just that there are some guards there. And it depends how we understand this phrase to see how the redemption is and how we can get back to the garden or get close to the garden. I was just offer Maimonides' interpretation and my understanding of his interpretation that the Lat HaCherva Mitapechet, this flashing sword, refers to the flashes of insight that we are granted if we do our part, which is a huge part, which is, first of all, getting the discipline to put our minds to intensive study, intensive thinking and rethinking, and our notions of the deity and God. And if we do this correctly, and we're able to suppress all the bodily urges and all the other interferences and bleeps and whistles and notifications that we get every second now, and concentrate on this, then we will be rewarded with flashes of insight. Maimonides tells us that the human condition is such, it's just how humans are, that we cannot have the sustained, unending concentration and connection to these upper worlds. The body, not just our own bodies, but the physical world with all of its distractions and demands just won't let us do it. But we can hope for our flashes. And sometimes, the Rambam says, these flashes are so close together that it's as if they're like a strobe light that's lighting up the night. So there is a way back into the Garden of Eden. With regard to the Tower of Babel, here it's actually quite clear, because, and I'll put this on the screen now, that all the commentators point out that the verse in Tzfanya, one of the last prophets of Israel, in chapter 3, verse 9, which speaks of a messianic age in which God turns to all the people in a clear language to come worship God. So this situation that has ensued ever since the Tower of Babel and the division of the generation of the division, in which people are not united, they're kept apart, even by such a simple feature, basic feature as language, will be redeemed. And we will all hear the voice of God, the God calling us in a simple, clear language. Here's the verse, Ki az epoch elamim safa v'rura. Lekro chulam b'shem Hashem, lavdo shchem echad. God says that he will then turn to the nations, all the nations of the world, in a clear language, so that all may call upon the name of God and worship him with a single shoulder. That's a Hebrew phrase, idiom, that means together. So there is a redemption from the punishment meted out after the Tower of Babel and the dispersion of the nations. Now, rather concisely, the implications. Well, both of these stories, I think, are in allegories. The story of Adam and Eve is an allegory for the human individual, and the story of the Tower of Babel is an allegory for human society. These are two different things. We are very much primed these days to think of the community and the neighborhood and the nation and are working together, but we should never forget that we have a tremendous responsibility to ourselves. The Rambam says that our responsibility is directly proportional to our control over the situation. And since we have the greatest control over ourselves, I can do what I want in terms of developing my own personality. Getting my community, even my family or my country, to get on the path that I think is right is much more difficult. So and the Jewish tradition does not allow us to shirk this responsibility. We have a responsibility to ourselves to develop ourselves. And the story of the Adam and Eve and their banishment for the Garden of Eden. And as I said, the way back past the angels guarding the entrance is basically how the Torah lays out the path for human redemption to re-enter the Garden of Eden. With regard to the society, then again here, I would just say that we see that in the story of the Tower of Babel, Dor Palaga, there was total cooperation. It was everyone was, the individual was nothing, and the group, the collective, was everything. And what we saw there was cruelty. The Midrash tells us that when they were carrying bricks up to build the tower, if a human worker fell down to his death, no one cared. No one even paid attention. But if a brick fell down, they were all crying, "Oh, when we will get another brick." So this sort of wiping away the human individual for the sake of the collective, when the collective is actually engaged in a very nefarious plan, is wrong. And in the Messianic redemption, we will all come together again, but this time hearing and speaking the same clear language, hearing this clear language understood by everyone, coming from God to worship him together as one. Thank you very much. And if you have anything to comment, please write something in your comments. Thank you anyway, and Shabbat Shalom.